So as you obviously know, I'm the land mobile product manager at Iridium. You are obviously a world-renowned entomologist and zoologist. We've been working with you closely over the last couple of years. Do you mind, starting off and just telling us all a little bit more about yourself?
I'm an American entomologist. I moved down to Chile in 2017, shortly after I finished my PhD. And I focused on finding some of the rarest insects on the planet. So what people have nicknamed the living fossils. So all the few species from the surviving lineages from millions of years ago. Basically, like there's some down here that the fossil record shows that they've been around since the time of the dinosaurs, anywhere like around 200 million years ago. So my work is going out to the most remote areas of Patagonia and trying to find where they have survived and how they've done that. So how I do that is I just go on my own most of the time, and I transect remote areas and fjords using a combination of hiking, backpacking, and pack rafting. So that's why all the gear that you see on the back, because depending on where I go, I need like different gear, and when I come back, sometimes I don't have time to fix my dry suits, so I need to just go out again, on a drop of a hat. So that's kind of like a overall of what I do.
That's amazing. It's such a fascinating career, and obviously, as you said, takes you to some very remote areas. What originally inspired you to become an entomologist? And have you had any like big surprises in your career so far?
Oh, I mean, so many. So yeah. So what inspired me to be an entomologist? So all my work is focused on conservation. So once I find those species, I try to figure out how to include them in biodiversity conservation initiative here in Chile, and then start using all that information into other parts of the world, the very few other parts of the world where those families still survive. So what inspired me is conservation. I wanted to, when I started my career as a biologist, I became a zoologist because I wanted to study animals, right? And I wanted to study big things. I wanted to like ride my subjects of study, if you will, something big, vertebrates. So I started seeing that there was very little done with invertebrates, especially insects. Insects are all around. So I started honing down my interest on trying to do conservation. And in order to do conservation on large species, I saw that insects were intimately related to the species in one way or another, either as a food source or they depended on the insects for pollination. So insects were just part of the ecosystem in every single animal group that I try to study, from birds all the way to manatees. You always find a correlation with insects. So even tenuous, but it's always there. So that's what started inspiring me. And then when I started doing my PhD, I found out about all these groups that people don't know about. So this is like a little sidetrack, but when I was little, I think most of us, if not all of us, at one point dream of being paleontologists, right? Because we wanted to find like dinosaurs, right? Like I love dinosaurs at one point. And then when I realized that paleontologists actually find bones and not the dinosaurs themselves, I was very little. I was super disappointed. It's like, I want to find a dinosaur. So, fast forward, I don't know, 20 something years. And then I started finding that there are these insects that have survived for that long. Like when I talk to kids, I tell them so they can understand that I study dinobugs. So insects that have been around actually almost unchanged since that time. So that actually like was an added bonus on why I study entomology and why I focused on this strange and poorly understood groups. So that led me to figure out where in the world can I actually find these groups, and Patagonia ended up being one of those places. It's so fragmented because of all the glaciation here that the southern tip of the South American continent on the western side, it's so fragmented into different fjords that there's some areas that people have never gone into, and if they have, they never gone in trying to study the insect biodiversity. So that it's kind of like how I started focusing on coming down here, like moving from the Northern Hemisphere, where I know, everybody. I came down here knowing no one. It was just my wife and I moved down here. And I started getting to your second question, surprises. I started finding a lot of surprises down here. Like, every time I go out, I find new species. And that is not an exaggeration. I actually go out and come back with at least one new species that I'm able to recognize. Who knows, what other things I ended up collecting in the little vial that I carry all the insects in. So surprises, new excitement is on every time I go out. It doesn't matter if I just go nearby on a 2-day trip or a multi-week trip. I always come back and find something really exciting that no one's ever seen, because I focus a lot on their behavior. So figuring out how they live, their interactions with other insects and nature, all the ecosystem around. And because I focus on mostly on aquatic insects, and all the aquatic fauna here is related to, it's linked to glaciers in one way or another, I end up going to amazing places, very cold. That's why all the dry suits in the back. But that's a long answer. But
no,
yeah.
That's great. And honestly, that was another one of my questions I was going to ask is, why Patagonia? And it's fascinating how the implications of glaciers and the topography, from years and years ago, can have an effect on what species you're looking out for. And I think it's rare to meet someone who can truly say they've discovered a new species of insect or a new species at all. If you were to put a number on it, do you know how many new species you've discovered since starting your research?
So far, my count is up to 64.
Wow.
I am running out of time on trying to describe them. It takes a long time to describe them, but let me show you one actually. This is a photo of one of the rarest insects in the planet. I discovered a new species from this a few years ago. So that's just to give you an idea. And it's, about this big. For a fly, it's actually quite big. So so far it's 64. I'm working with other experts around the world to provide them with insects to try to understand the fauna, how they, where you find them, first of all. Because if I just tell you, you find them in the forest, you go out into the forest, it's like, okay, there's so many trees, right? They're associated with trees, to the ground. So that's what I'm trying to do, work with people that know the fauna very well, so we can actually, streamline the process of understanding how everything works around here. But yeah, that's that number keeps on growing every time I go out.
Honestly, that's amazing. And I think it's really interesting, right? Because you're working in could you describe Patagonia? Because from what you've described, it sounds extremely remote. So I'm sure working within that type of environment, both remote but also very forested, or has a lot of the rainforest there. Are there challenges in this environment as you're working?
A lot. So Patagonia is one of it's one of the most extreme places you're gonna find in the Americas. So challenges in Patagonia is you need to be very self-aware that the weather here changes drastically without any previous notice. So in Patagonia, just to make it a little bit clearer, for those that are not familiar, I am in the Chilean part of Patagonia. So in southern South America, where it starts becoming into a cone, so you end up having the Andes going on the western side of the continent, and then on the eastern side, you end up having all the Argentine Patagonia, which is desert. So think of Chile. I always try to explain Chile being kind of like an island within the continent. So it's surrounded. On the western side, you have the Pacific Ocean. On the southern side, you have, the Southern Ocean. On the eastern, you have the Andes. And then on the northern, you have the Atacama Desert. So the Atacama is one of the driest places in the planet. So think of all the biodiversity ended up being encapsulated into this big island that just happens to be in between the continent. But in Chile, the way that the weather works is the southern Chile it's full of forests. It's a temperate rainforest. So as you start going closer to the Atacama or closer to the Ecuador, it starts drying up. So the challenges down where I'm at is you have so many influences from the ocean that if there is a system where how can I explain this? The fjords influence so much, the fjords and the ice fields influence the weather so much that it changes without notice, in a sense that the Andes in this part, they're not that high, but in southern Patagonia, you have, on top of the Andes, you have the ice fields. So you have the northern Patagonia ice field and the southern Patagonia ice field. So on the very top of the Andes, you have these large masses of ice that whenever the wind blows from the east to the west, it carries really cold wind, because it passes on top of the ice, and then it ends up merging with the wind from the west. So you end up getting unexpected changes, that because there's not that many weather stations around here, you don't know how it's behaving, unlike when you see something similar in the northern hemisphere. So just to sum it up, like the challenges that you end up having here is a huge risk of hypothermia. Even during the summer here, the weather can be so constant and so brutal that you are locked down in a place for about a week. And if you don't take care of all your gear, you are going to be at risk of hypothermia. So it becomes a very dangerous job to just be out in the middle of nowhere, especially going alone. But it's all about prevention. So those are the main challenges that you see here, that if you don't give nature the respect it deserves, it's not going to respect you back. And that is from biodiversity all the way to weather. So that
Totally.
I always have that in mind.
No, that's wild. And yeah, I think you hit on a lot of great points here, right? Remoteness, adverse weather conditions. These are things that you experience on a daily basis, right? And the last thing you want to worry about is your safety or reliable communications. Could you speak a little bit to the relationship with the need for reliable communications in environments such as this?
Oh, I don't even know how to begin with that. Communication makes a difference on anything and everything. If you cannot communicate with people, people are going to be worried. You're never going to have that peace of mind in your head, and you're never going to be focused on what you do, because you're always thinking that people are going to be worried about where you are. So reliable communication, it's a must here. I was not able to do this job previously because I just didn't have the means to actually communicate with people. Because like I told you, if you start thinking of everything that I do, all the dangers in here, if I say, or if I arrange with some people that I'm going to be going for a week, and then one of this weather windows actually changes and I'm pinned down for a whole week, they're going to think that something bad happened. So without communication, they're going to start making their own story of what happened, that I'm lost, because there's very few people that go to places that I go into. So it can end up causing a lot of problems, not just for yourself, but for other people. And at the end, if you start, if I'm in the middle of nowhere just looking in the ground for insects and I just hear a bunch of helicopters, like, I'm going to be distracted. So communication, again, it's key. I try to communicate every day where I am, what the weather conditions are. I also I'm in communication with people back home to make sure that they tell me the latest on any weather changes. Not only that, also on natural events, unexpected natural events. Anytime that there could be a possibility of there is a tsunami, for example, in any other part of the world, because I am in the fjords and I'm actually really close to sea level, I need to be aware of what happened in what part of the world to make sure that I just get to higher ground, to make sure that I don't get swept away by any tsunamis down here, because by the time it hits Chile, is going to take some time to go in between all the channels, and that can actually intensify or ameliorate the impacts of that natural disaster. So on top of that, you have to start thinking that the Chilean Andes are one of the most active in volcano activity. So you add volcano activity, you add all this. All these things that you need to be aware, and without communication, that will be actually impossible. I would not feel safe going out doing what I do without the means of actually just sharing information. So that's a key.